decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. No, not go with me, I still will follow. No, not go with me, I still will follow. No, not go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back.
What's in a name? How powerful is a name, or can it be, or should it be? Now, I ask this every couple of years, and you know me a little bit better now if you've been around a while. What does it mean to be a Bodo? Be on time. See, that's the number one. That's the first thing that always comes up. You better be on time. And you don't really have to teach that if you're a Bodo. You just know. Ask any one of the kids if they need to be somewhere. They will let you know about, if it takes 4 minutes to get there, they'll let you know at least 20 minutes early. Hey, we got to start to get ready to go, or we're going to be late. And by late, they mean maybe only 5 minutes early, because that's still late if you're a Bodo. That's just something that goes with our name. I don't know what it is. I can drive an hour and 15 minutes to Canton, and it's not like I sit down with a piece of paper and a calculator and whatever. We can leave to where we're going to be there within 5 minutes of when I think we're going to be there, without trying. I don't have to map it out. I don't have to do anything. I just know. I don't know what it is. It's just there. That's just what it means. What else? What do you think our name means?
Wear black t-shirt.
Well, that's me. Follow the rules, probably. Yes, if you ask any of the teachers of my children in school, probably means they're not going to be a problem. They're going to follow the rules. That's probably pretty accurate. I'm pretty sure that Erin wasn't a Bodo growing up, but that was her, and that was me. And people ask all the time, how are your kids so well behaved, and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, it's nothing I taught them, because they were just born that way. Because they always want to know, and then I always ask them how they were as a kid. You're like, I was terrible, I never listened, I never blah, blah. I'm like, well, what about your husband? Well, he was the same way. And I'm like, can't be genetics. So what's in a name? Well, another thing that happens to our name is you end up getting called by your last name. Just a lot of times that's what it is. You got one of those names. It could be a professional wrestler name. It could be a televangelist. It could be whatever. It could just be just 4 letters. That's all you need. Just the last name. What else? I know me. I like to do puzzles. I'm finishing up a 2,000-piece puzzle right now. I actually did probably 3/4 of it in about 3 days, and then I got COVID, and then I couldn't even think straight, and so the end's really hard. Ask my kids, they go over there and look, and you can sit there for 25 minutes and you can't get one piece. But I like to do puzzles, but that's me. I'd like to think that I'm a hard worker once I get going, that I'll keep working and I won't complain. I know so far only one of my kids is working, but I know she's a hard worker. I didn't teach her that. I mean, she sees it, I'm sure. That might be in our name. I don't know. Hopefully that's what it means. If a Bodo kid gets a job in Columbia, hopefully, oh yeah, there's another one. Okay, this is going to be good. Hopefully that's what it means. I know things about me that I don't know if they're with my name, but I have an inkling that might be. I kind of try to avoid conflict. I don't like telling people what to do. I feel like it always comes out wrong and sarcastic and mean, and so I don't like the conflict. I just don't. And then if you know me long enough, and this isn't necessarily my family, this is me, I tend to probably think I'm right most of the time. And even then, even in my brain, when I don't think that, other people are going to assume that I think that I'm right. And that because I'm low-key and monotone or whatever, that it comes off as sarcastic. And so basically, there's nothing I can do about it. Because I do think it a lot of times that I'm right, and when I don't, people think that I think it anyway. So I'm kind of stuck, and it kind of goes with me. Now that's not necessarily my name, though. I don't know. Some of my children, I think that's the same thing. But hopefully that's not what they think of when they think of Bodo, but it could be. That could be in the name. I can procrastinate. I'm famous in college for having a big paper due, and if I think I'm going to be really stressed about or anything, then I just take a nap. Because a well-rested mind after a nap seems to work better than sitting here like this trying to get it done. But that just comes with my nature. That's in a name. That's in a name. I don't know, what's it mean to be a Harper? Anything? What would people say? Come on, Caleb, dish it out.
We're going to be 5 minutes late.
You're late? Okay, see?
If you're always there on time, you tell them to be there 15 minutes early.
I didn't say that. They just know that. You can laugh about it. It's all right. I would say, I've only lived here 6.5 years, that they would take anyone into their house that needed a place to go. I think that's what it means to be a Harper. That's just something. They didn't teach me. They don't go around with a sign. This is what it means to be Harper. You come up. No, they just are. You just know. What about a spade? What's it mean to be a spade? Stubborn. Okay, competitive in the games. Come over for game night. Be prepared to lose or be ridiculed or whatever it takes, right?
Dedicated.
Dedicated. Agreed.
Hard worker.
Hard worker, yeah. They'll do anything for you. I know they will. Passionate. And compassionate. Yeah. I golf with Sue a lot, and I know one thing. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of your backswing or she's in the middle of her backswing. If one of her daughters calls on the phone, she will stop and answer it. The girls come first. I don't know, I've never been driving down the road when a daughter's call or something, but I have a feeling they would pull over to the side of the road and stop and talk. But that's what I think. So when I think of the name Spaeth, I'm like, well, those girls are going to come first, and that's what their mom is, and that's a good thing. Nobody taught those things. I don't think there was a family meeting for the Harbors or the Spaeths or the Bodos that said, this is what we're going to be about. It doesn't work that way. That's just what the name means. It's That's what they're known for. What's it mean to be a Christian? Depends on who you ask, right? Could be a hot button topic. I would hope that if I'm reading in this thing right, that they would be loving, caring. I would have a feeling if you ask some people, they would say judgmental, right? I'm talking about the world. I'm not talking about me or what it should be. I'm just saying that's what some people think. Sometimes they care about the wrong things. You hope we care about the right things, but what's it mean to be a Christian? Do we care about language? Aaron grew up in a little Baptist church, and what's the phrase? I didn't grow up in church. We don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't chew, we don't go with boys who do. Something like that. Like I think that was just the written rule. It doesn't say it anywhere in the Bible. That's just what they taught. And they had a little phrase for it. I don't know about you, but if they say, "What's it mean to be a Christian?" I hope that's not the first thing that comes out of somebody's mouth. But it can, because they took a point to make it the same. Yes. Okay. Don't put it to music or anything. I don't think that's good. But I would say that's focusing on the wrong thing. Wouldn't you? Like, is language important? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Back in the day, some people were corrected. Yeah, we came in that place in the church where you go in and you worship God. Oh, you mean the sanctuary? A word I've never heard anywhere apart from church, anywhere in my life. Well, come to this part of our office building. This is the sanctuary. This is where we prepare the specimens. It's not, and I'm not saying sometimes putting good, nice words have full of meaning and you do it on purpose. But I don't know if I'd correct somebody if they came in and said, "Yeah, I'm in that church part where we're saying." I wouldn't be like, "Oh, no, it's the sanctuary. And you shall not wear shorts in the sanctuary. And you should not say this word or this word, and you shouldn't do that." I don't know. Names and language, they do matter. Let me tell you this, though. They're not the most important thing, right? We have some friends, and I won't use them by name, and they're not here because they live in Iowa, so if you're watching online, I'm talking about you. But we have some friends, you haven't hung out with them long enough as we do. They're not perfect. Trust me. And by a lot of church standards, people would be like, "Ooh." Like, "Oh, maybe the language is a little colorful. Maybe I'm surprised you're friends with the Bodos because they're rule followers. And they may not be exactly like that. But I know this, they'll do anything for anybody. They take in foster children, they do all this stuff. They do the things that you think Christians would do to help people. And then maybe some of the things that you say you shouldn't do, well, that's not as important. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because if you think of these names, and again, I'm not going to say them, and you think, yeah, they'll help anybody, and that's the first thing you think of rather than, but you can't say this word, and you can't wear that, and you can't do this. Now, I'm not saying there's not lines all over the place, because I'm up here in a black t-shirt and jeans, but I admit that there are lines. You don't see me in shorts and flip-flops and a tank top preaching. I feel like that would be too much for some people, so I'm not going to do that. And to be honest, I'm not comfortable doing that. That doesn't mean I stand up here and say that you can't do that, or that I can't do that. But I admit there's something. I mean, something's important, right? Everybody, whether they believe it or not, draws a line. Even though I'm like, yeah, you don't have to wear a suit and a tie. I don't begrudge anybody that wants to do that. You want to dress up, I think that's great. My line's somewhere around here. That's just me. For Christian, what do we know? I'll tell you one thing. This is what happens when you got to figure out what you're about, what your name means and everything. I don't want to be known as the guy in Columbia, don't make fun of me, that shows up to a basketball game and yells too much and yells at the refs. But if I don't try to figure out what I'm about and what's most important to me, and some stuff just comes out, and the only way people know me is what just happens to come out randomly, and I don't try to focus, that could happen. Every time I leave a sporting event, I think about that in my head. Every time before I go, I think about it in my head. And so if I I'm not a visualized Zen kind of yoga person. But if I think about before I go, this is what I'm about, and I'm affirming, and I love that referee just as much as my neighbor, and I love the kids on the other team as much as the kids on my team, which I do. And if you talk to me any other time than at the game, you will agree that I believe those things. And then sometimes passion comes out and it turns out different than we like. Well, let me just say that if I'm known for a whole bunch of other things that are good, hopefully that will cover up my rough spots and my mistakes. Hopefully if my name and me is known as for different things, then that can be overlooked. Now, if I'm rough in that area, and then you come to my church and I say you can't do this and you can't do that and you must wear this and you can't say that, then that's not a good light. It means I haven't really curated what I want people to think about our church or our neighbor. Well, as we go into this quick little series, we're going to be a couple weeks, we're going to have Easter, there'll be a break, and then I'll have a couple more weeks of this on Isaiah. Let me just tell you that when it comes to God, in His name, it mattered to Isaiah in the book of Isaiah. It meant a lot to him. Let me tell you a little bit about Isaiah. Now, if you're an average person and you open up your Bible and up towards the front and there's this book of Isaiah, it looks pretty big. There's there's over 66 chapters, and it keeps going and it keeps going. And not every part of it is this riveting, oh, I can't miss, I can't wait till I flip to the next page, this is going to be awesome. But Isaiah, this dude, first of all, he's speaking to people in exile. You know what that would be like? That would be like, I don't know, the guy that's just going to only speak to people in prison who have no hope, that they're going to be stuck in prison forever. And you got to go in and talk to those people and give them hope. I don't know, I'm not signing up for that. That's hard. Now, we have hope, I hope we have hope to give them, but that's a tall chore. So here's God's people, they've been in exile. That means they were in this great land, they were in the promised land, they did all this stuff, God gave them all this stuff, and now it wasn't that time. There were other bad kings ruling them. They were in a place that wasn't their home, and they felt like they were stuck there forever, and God had forgotten them. And this is Isaiah now who gets to talk to them. And every time we read something in the Bible, and I can gloss through those 60-some chapters, it's like, oh, what are they complaining about? We're talking hundreds of years. We're not talking about, yeah, it was bad for a month, or I had COVID for 5 days and I felt like the world was going to end. This is years and years and hundreds of years, and Isaiah has to talk to them. So no easy task. And so they all felt like God had forgotten them. They even got to the point where they just said, this is now our new home. We don't like it, we don't like the person in charge, but this is our new home. And Isaiah is saying, no, stay strong, be holy, look to God, because God's going to liberate you someday. Easy to say if you're not the person in the middle of the 100 years of exile and all that. Easy to say, hard to do. But that's how Isaiah's talking to him. You want to learn a little bit about him? It actually says Isaiah was married. He had a couple children. They called his wife the prophetess. We don't know if that means she prophesied like Isaiah did, or she was just the S of the prophet. We don't know that. But it says it in there, and we know that when it says some details, you're like, oh, that's interesting. It doesn't say that about other people, but it does say, so here's a regular dude, has a wife, has at least 2 kids. Here he is, talking to people. Kind of like saying to you, well, God calls you to go speak to people in prison where there's no hope. Normal people do it all the time. That's what they're saying, normal people. That's Isaiah. A lot of people call him the greatest Old Testament prophet. I don't know if that's true or not. I know that a lot of other people base their books off of his material first. Zephaniah, Nahum, and Jeremiah, they all reflected on Isaiah's texts. He was quoted over 20 times in the New Testament. For those people that think that thousands of years is too long and they can't be connected, they quoted Isaiah. They called him the theologian of the Old Testament. Now I know what you're thinking, because nobody opens up theology books just for fun. Me either. But they didn't mean it that way. They didn't mean there's these words and phrases and you look at them and they teach you the doctrine of Christianity. It's even better than that. Isaiah understood God's nature so well that he applied it to the practical issues facing Israel. That's real theology. That's how does God relate to your life when you go through this. This is how God relates to you when you're going through this. Isaiah was great at that. It was a practical skill, not I studied theology and this is what it looks like. This is how God applies to your real life. They called Amos the prophet of righteousness. They called Hosea the prophet of loving kindness. And they called Isaiah the prophet of holiness. Now you named your child Isaiah. So you probably know it means Yahweh is salvation. That's a name. No, sorry. I was pointing to Devin. I don't like to. Devin, we're now looking at you. Just your worst nightmare. We were having a conversation earlier, and she stands up here and signs, and it's great. I love to watch it. And she says when she's having a bad day, she feels like she's up here signing, and she doesn't know why everybody's staring at her. It's like, wasn't that the point when you're signing? Well, yes, it is. But now I just pointed at her and said something. So they are staring at you. But I have a feeling that when you named your child Isaiah, that you knew what it meant. Because I know you. And we did. Sorry, kids. Some of our kids, we thought about that when we were naming them, and others we were like, oh, sounds great. I'm not going to say which ones are which, but in this case, Isaiah means Yahweh is salvation. And I'm going to tell you about how this name is important. Because we're talking about what's it mean to be a Christian? What's it mean to be this? This is where I get to get out my markers, which I think is fun. I don't know, not everybody thinks that's fun. We're going to be dark blue today. So there's this thing, especially back in the day by Hebrews, people lived in Israel, about the name of God. You've heard don't take the Lord's name in vain, and a lot of people are pretty serious about that. Well, that comes from this back in the day, the way they felt about the name of God. They believed it so much, it just said, don't misuse the name of God. That's like the interpretation. Now, not only did that mean speaking it wrong, that also meant misusing it as in you would write it, and then if you had to scratch a part of it out, or somebody scratched it, that was misusing God's name. This was serious stuff, because they believed the name of God was holy. This is the prophet of holiness that we're talking about. So you weren't allowed to say it. You weren't supposed to write it that often unless it was official, because somebody could deface it. It'd be like writing God on the wall, tagging it in graffiti. Well, you wouldn't do it, because even though it would look pretty and it's great, someone could come along and scratch out part of it, and it would be, oh, you did that to the name of God. And that's the way they felt. Like they were so serious about it. It was kind of like first names of neighbors growing up. If you were a kid, you didn't go say the first name of the adult that lived next door. Now, my kids are like, yeah, they tell me to use their first name all the time. Well, when I was growing up, you were not allowed. There was Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so lived here, Mr. and Mrs. I don't even know if I know their first names, because you couldn't say them anyway, so what's the point? Just don't do it. Now, we're not quite so formal today, but I would bet that maybe you wouldn't go up to President Biden and say, hey, Joe, how's it going? Because he holds an important title, right? You probably wouldn't have went up to Queen Elizabeth and like, how's it going, Beth? How was yesterday? I just don't think you would do that. So we understand what that was like. Now if you think the president or the queen was important, this was God they were talking about. And that's why they felt that way. It was too important. And so they made up all other kinds of names that you could call God that wasn't his personal name, is what happened. Now, there's all kinds of things. I don't know if you ever notice when you're reading, sometimes it says God, sometimes it says God with a capital G, sometimes it says Lord with a capital L and then little letters, and sometimes it says Lord, all capital letters. They all basically mean something different. To give a quick little thing, if they're talking about a God in the Bible, there's a capital G, there's a phrase Elohim. And it just means, yes, this is a God, but the capital G means this is the Hebrew word Elohim behind it, which it means it's the God. It's the God. And then there's just plain Lord. And then when you capitalize it, that means Adonai. And that just means it's the Lord, because they use the word Lord all the time. Hey, Lord and Master, hey, whatever. When they were talking about God as Lord, and when you see that in the Bible, they're talking about Adonai, the Hebrew word behind it. Now, when you see, now, I'm doing this on purpose. I want you to get like a flashback and have something zap you when you see it. When you see capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D in the Bible, that's the personal name of God behind that word. That's like addressing the president as Joe. When you see those capital letters, that's the name of God. Don't cross it out. Don't say it wrong. You get in trouble. Not really. But that's a personal name. Now, there's some weird stuff going on in the Bible. This is lesson time. So I told you you weren't allowed to write it wrong or say it a lot of times if you're Hebrew. So here's what they did sometimes. So let's say I wanted to say God. I knew that this was a big deal. I'd be like, well, I don't want anybody to deface it later, so let's do that. And so you kind of make up a new... Now I know, because I can fill in a blank and I'm not an idiot, that that's probably God. This is how they wrote it so that they couldn't get in trouble. Because if someone later would come along and go, that would be defacing the name of God if it were the full name of God, but it's not, because I put a little slash in the middle. Yeah, I know it's silly, but that's the kinds of things they did to do the rules wrong. They would just do that. Well, there was also this thing in Hebrew where if you look at, first of all, I can't write in Hebrew, so there's not going to be any Hebrew words on this thing, and it goes this way instead of that way, and it's real confusing. Well, there's this thing that ancient Hebrew, and I can't remember the name of what they call it, they don't write down the vowels. So when they were going to write Yahweh, let's see, what letters we got here? Y, H, W, H. No, I'm not a teacher. That's what they would do. No vowels in there. And if you lived back then, all the words were written like this, and you just knew how to fill in the spaces in between. There wasn't anything else. That's what it said. Yahweh. Here's the problem. We don't know how to do that. You ever heard God called Jehovah? Right? You want to know where that came from? It's 4 consonants. They didn't want to write Yahweh. There's vowels left out. Yehovah. So I want to fill it. That's Yahweh. I know that now because I've studied it. Yeah. What if I filled in my own vowels? Yehovah. And then I can't speak Hebrew. You could be like Jehovah because the W could sound like a V. Look at that. No, that's not a pretty word. It looks like Yow! Yahweh! That's where it comes from. So you have Jehovah, you have Yahweh, you have all these names. It's all, I'd say it's all Greek to me, but this is Hebrew, so sorry. But you got this very important thing about their names and about their God and about Him being really holy. You want to know why? Yahweh is salvation. Why did Isaiah say that? You know what he's saying? The actual name of God is salvation. This is how important the name is. Now, when you look at me and you say Bodo, it can mean a lot of things, but it definitely doesn't mean Bodo can save you. Just the name. Can you believe that? Yahweh is salvation. The personal name of God can save you. That's why Isaiah is focusing on holiness. Holy. This name means something. So this series, there's all these gods in the world back then. They believed, a bunch of people believed in different things. They said that if you run into this Yahweh character, this guy that you know his first name, he can save you. Now, I don't know if you're in exile for hundreds of years. I might actually want to meet a guy that his name means, my God can see you. And that's why there was a song in the 90s, 2000, I don't know. Our God is a God who saves. Our God is... But that's what it means. That's what Isaiah means. Our God is a God who saves. His name is important. When other people learn the name of our God, we want them to know that He's the only one that can save you, no matter what's going on. So when we start to look at anything we look at in Isaiah, I just want you to remember that. That's a long time to just say a few things. That we're talking about the personal name of God and what it can do for you, what it can do for me, what it can do for the other people that we know, because that's really what's important here. If we've already figured it out, we know our God can save us. Other people need to know that our God can save them, and that just His name alone means that. You run into His, and then what the old hymns? Our God is like a strong tower. The righteous run into it and are saved. You just run into the name of God, and He's like, this is what I can do for you. I don't know what they can do. The photos can be on time, but our God can save you. I think that means a little bit more. This is just a quick little intro, so these points are going to be very quick. We're in Isaiah, which if you have a Pew Bible, we're starting on page 591 here. We're going to be in Isaiah 1, 16 and 17. Here, we'll go green. I wish I wrote better, but I don't. At least I can spell. Oh yeah, photos can spell. Not all of them, but... Sorry, Josh. You're still a photo. No, a lot of them can. Isaiah 1, 16, 17. Sorry, that's the screen. Set that there, that's nice. It's not the name of God, so I can stop on it. Isaiah 1, 16 and 17. I think I need reading glasses. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your things from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. I'll read that one more time. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your things from before my eyes. Cease to do evil. Learn to do good, seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow. Isaiah 1, 16 and 17. So real quick. My desk's bigger than this thing. When I'm working on my desk, it just works better. Okay, I got my rest. 1. You're going to like this one. Take a bath. Did you see what that said? Wash yourselves clean. Take a bath. But you didn't think you had to go to church to learn that. Number 1 today is take a bath. See that? Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean. Remove the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Wash yourself, take a bath. I feel like I look like a person that just had COVID for a week. When I was growing up, I remember, especially in 5th grade, I had these red sweatpants that I just loved. And I had this plain, wow, it came back around. This plain Champion red sweatshirt that went with it. I know what you're thinking. Red sweats, red sweatshirt. Probably didn't look that great. I'm not saying I had any fashion sense at all. I know they were my favorite. You know how I know? Because once on accident, I wore them both in that combination to picture day at school. So I looked like just this little tomato, and I was probably weighed like 60 pounds. So those were my favorite red sweatpants, my favorite red sweatshirt. I remember something else about these favorite things. Well, when you're little and you're in the summer and you got nothing to do and no place to go and no job, you can tend to wake up in the morning and put back on the same clothes you had on yesterday. I'm not saying that I don't still occasionally do that now. I'm just saying that it happened way more often when I was growing up. And I think I was a pretty clean person, but I know at one point in the summer, I think I wore them 4 days in a row without showering. And I know at one point my mom said, "Take a bath, would you?" It was so bad that other people could tell. Take a bath. Like I said, you think I'm better now? There might have been a couple days last week where I wore the same thing 2 days in a row. Maybe 3, I'm not sure. But I like to think that I can at least tell myself now, I'm like, I should probably wear something else today. This is getting pretty bad. But what about inside? Do I take care of myself and do I notice? What about the last time I opened my Bible and read anything about God? Can I go 7 days and do that and have you not notice? Probably. But can I notice? Do I take the time to notice? This thing here, take a bath, it's talking about outside, where people can tell. It's talking about inside. And here's the thing, I can say, take a bath, get clean, clean up your act, don't do this, don't do that. But what does it start to say? Not just don't do evil anymore, not just clean up everything you can see. It says learn to do good. So take a bath, inside and out. I know, well, you have to remember who he's saying this to. People who've been exiled 100 years. Maybe they don't even have a permanent home. Maybe they don't have their own shower. I don't know. Take a bath. Be holy. Learn to do good. That's what Isaiah is telling these people who have no hope. He's saying, I notice. Find God again. He will save you. Take a bath. Number 2, put on your own mask first. Anyone ever fly on an airplane? Got to watch the stupid little video and the little, what do they call it, flight attendants up there? In the case of an emergency, where the cabin loses air pressure, you take this mask that's going to fall down in front of you, and you put it over your face like this, put it around the back of your head, and you will get clean oxygen coming to your body. I'm like, well, I can understand that, that's easy. And they say, but don't help other people first. Help yourself first, because if you don't have the oxygen around your face first, and you try to help other people, you can pass out while you're trying to help them. So help yourself first. It just sounds like an order thing, right? Well, a wee little bit of Wesleyan church history. A long time ago, we were combined with the Methodist Church, and we were called the Wesleyan Methodist Connections, I think it was. And then we had a whole bunch of other names. And then at some point, even those merged with the Holiness Church. It was church just called the Holiness Church. Then eventually, as you know now, we're the Wesleyan Church, and there's the United Methodist Church. Well, they are now united with Methodists only, not the Wesleyans, so that's why they're called United Methodists. Well, here's the basic argument. Wesleyan said, take a bath. Methodist said, help others. So it's kind of simple, John. I don't think it's possibly what they were arguing about. Of course, both are true. In an airplane, you got to put on your mask first. Do you help other people or they put on your mask? No. You do it in the other order. You put the mask. But here's the thing. Do you put on your mask and then just sit there and then not help people? No. Basic difference back then was the Wesleyans were like, we merged with the Holiness Church. We want to get close to God and we want to be as holy as we can. And the Methodists said, yeah, but you're not helping anybody. We just want to go help people. I would still argue it's both. But it's in the amount you do it. What would you say if you tried to help people in an airplane and you didn't have your mask on? What's going to happen eventually? So the Wesleyans are telling the Methodists, yeah, you're helping everybody here on the planet, but you're not taking care of yourselves. Like, I don't even know if you believe in God. You're just helping people. And the Wesleyans were like, yeah, but you got to be holy before you do this, whatever. It's always both. So I want to help people in my life. I want to be known as someone who helps people. Do I need to get my entire life together before I do that? Before I can help people with my money, do I need to have a 401k? Do I need to have a life insurance policy? Do I need a new car? Do I need all this stuff? No. That'd be like on an airplane. When I go to help people, do I want a mask on? Yes. Do I need a hazmat suit, a personal protective bubble, everything I can think of before I go touch anybody? Do I need to be vaccinated before I can help anybody? No, you don't need all that stuff. You just need your mask on first. Well, when it comes to Wesleyans, I would say your mask is being connected to God. And you can say, well, I can help people without God. Well, yes, you can, but eventually you're going to pass out and faint from exhaustion because you don't have the right kind of power. So as a Wesleyan, for me, it's important. And I'm not saying that Methodists don't believe this. I'm saying this is what they argued over at one point. Somebody said, I'm going to focus on helping people. And they said, I'm going to focus on being holy. And I'm going to tell you need both. But you need to put your mask on first. If you're not connected to God, then you don't have enough strength to help people in the way that God wants you to help them. But I don't need to get the rest of my life in order before I start helping people. I don't need to put my mask on and sit in my seat and buckle my seatbelt and say, ha, you're on your own, don't put your mask on. Put your mask on first. Connect to God first. Then you can help people. And then the last one today, 3, help those who cannot help themselves. Did you know that in old tribal societies, like back when the Bible was first written, that of course everybody, if you were old or if you were an orphan or you were a widow or anything else, your family took care of you, right? There wasn't this, well, what are you going to do? And then what happened? People started congregating in cities and they didn't live with their families. And then we know back in those times, if you were a woman or if you were fatherless or if you're a widow or any of those things, that you couldn't just say, hey, go get a job. You couldn't. You had to have somebody, you had to convince someone else with power, because if you didn't have power in society, if you didn't have a dad, you didn't have power. If you didn't have a family, you didn't have power. You had to convince someone else with power to help you. Then they could help you. But then they could. I love it. I love it. So who do you help? And people, have you ever heard, oh, don't help them. What about the next guy? What about the next guy? What about the next guy? So we're like, well, you help people that are right in front of you. That's a start, right? Well, what I'm telling you, here's something you can focus on. Help the people who can't help themselves. Those that cross your path, that helps. But there's some people in the world that can't help themselves. You want to know who's going to be grateful that you help them? People that can't help themselves. You hold the door for somebody at a restaurant, in a store. Most people are pretty gracious. Oh, thank you. You want to know who's really gracious? Someone who can't open the door themselves. Someone who has a wheelchair and they can't open the door. You want to know who God wants you to help? It says it right in there. Seek justice, rescue the oppressed, defend the orphan, plead for the widow, help those people that can't help themselves even if they wanted to. That's what God does. That's what he's saying, hold up my name, Yahweh. And when these people run into it, they know they're going to be saved. Because they cannot help themselves. Only God can. Wrong page, wrong page. Man, I lost it all. We're pretty much done, but there you go. What do you want to be known for? Remember that commercial? What do you want on your tombstone? Pepperoni and sausage. When you die, what do you want to say on your headstone? What do you want to be known for? As fun as it is, I hope mine doesn't say, here lies Moto, was never late ever. It's always on time. I hope it says something like, was willing to help anybody who asked, would give the shirt off his back to everyone who wanted to know. I don't know. But that's what I hope it was. I do know this. If I want to be known for something, I better start working at it now, right? Over the next months, over the next year, that's what we're going to ask the question in our church. What do we want our church to be known for? And you know what? If we don't decide what we're going to be known for, you know what it's going to be? They're friendly when you show up. They're nice. You're allowed to wear a black t-shirt in church if you want. That's great. I don't really want to be known for that. We got to decide what we want to be known for. I used to, when I interviewed for a job, I'd drive into the town, and when I got gas, I'd go ask the gas station attendant, hey, you hear this church down the road? And they'd be like, yeah. And sometimes they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, well, what are they like? And they'd be like, well, they really do a lot of stuff for the community. Good, right? I guarantee you one thing, if you don't decide to do something like that on purpose, nobody's going to know what we're about. That's what I want. I don't want people to say, yeah, when you show up to that church, they're really friendly. I mean, I do want them to say that. I don't want you guys to be mean. But I hope there's more than that. I hope that somebody says, yeah, that's the church that the first Saturday of the month, they drive meals to people. That's good, right? That was done on purpose. Somebody decided to do that. I don't know what we're going to be known about, but I know that I want you guys to help figure it out with me so that we can do it on purpose. And then be known for that. And then if it doesn't work, then we'll try something new. It doesn't matter. But we need to start being about something and not just doing it on accident. I welcome your ideas. Those are the things I want you to wake up in the morning and when you're going to sleep that you're thinking about, that you're like, I don't know what our church is about. What does it even mean to go there? I don't know. That's what I want you to think about. Not, what am I allowed to wear? What am I not allowed to wear? What are we doing on this Saturday? What are we doing on this? I want to start everyone to think like that. What do I want to be known for someday when I'm dead? What does our church want to be known for? And let's do it together. I know that Yahweh is salvation. What does new life mean?
Rampaging with no vaccination, 6 feet down, coming out of